This is call back to order, and I would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Roy Sanders, an 11th grade student from Rosemont High School.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, please stay there. Vice President Pritchett, she represents your school, apologizes for not being able to attend tonight's meeting as she had surgery yesterday. She's watching from home and cheering you on. She asked us to tell you how very proud she is of you. She has known you since you were a little guy playing the Rosemont Junior Wolverines and is looking forward to seeing your future accomplishments. Congratulations and go Wolverines. So let me just say on her behalf that, and for everyone in the public to know, Roy Sanders Jr. is an 11th grader at Rosemont High School and a year-round three-sport athlete. In the fall, Roy plays fullback, defensive end, and kick returner on the varsity football team. In the winter, Roy plays power forward and center on the varsity basketball team. His performance last season earned him the team's MVP award. In the spring, Roy is the starting catcher for the varsity baseball team. Even though Roy excels at all three sports, his heart and passion remain with football, the game he's been playing since the age of 6. Most recently, Roy was featured in a story by the Manteca Bulletin sports reporter Jason Campbell, who wrote of Roy's touching show of sportsmanship. In a game against Sierra High School, Roy was part of a collision during a kick return that left another player motionless for 15 minutes. In a situation where he could have boasted about the strong hit, he took it upon himself to take a knee next to the injured player, reassuring him that he would be okay. This act of sportsmanship and kindness garnered the respect of Sierra High School's football teams and coaches, the press, and the injured player, Nick Luchetti. Nick was so grateful that he openly thanked Roy on Twitter, letting the world know how appreciative he was for Roy's humble sportsmanship. In the future, Roy hopes to continue his passion for football as a student athlete at Ohio State University and sports medicine. He hopes to become a professional football player with the option to pursue a career as an athletic trainer for the NFL. In regards to his career goals, Roy states, "If he can't make it, I at least want to help somebody else." The Sacramento City Unified School District is proud to recognize Roy Sanders Jr. as the stellar student. The microphone is yours. Future scouts are listening to you because this is being televised, so make it a good one.
I first and foremost want to thank the school board for at least nominating me and picking me to go ahead and have this honor to be in front of you guys. I want to thank my parents, go ahead and raising me to go ahead and be the way I am. Thank my principal for helping me get the word out that you got to go ahead and be raised like I am. And I hope that Nick gets better someday.
Well, we have a little certificate of appreciation for you.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption, with the exception of technical problems on Metro Cable 14, the government affairs channel on the Comcast and Sure West cable systems. Today's meeting will air Sunday, December 7th at 9 a.m., Monday, December 8th at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wish to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the community room and give it to Chief of Communications Officer, Mr. Ross, prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Responses to questions by the public will be posted on the district website or prior to the next board meeting. Please limit comments during the public comment to items not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is on the agenda, you will be asked to defer until your item comes up on the agenda. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you, Student Member Saito. Are there any announcements of actions taken in closed session?
Yes, Mr. President. One announcement out of closed session. By a vote of 4 affirmative votes with board members Cuneo and Pritchett absent, settlement agreement in a special ed matter was approved as OAH case number 2014-100339. That concludes my announcement, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to move the agenda? I have a motion to move the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7.0, public comment.
We have one comment on 7.0 from Darlene Anderson.
Good evening, board members, board superintendent. I come here tonight almost with a heavy heart to understand just the purpose of education. The purpose of education should be so that after 12 years, you can go and get a job. For most people, it may be, but for certain individuals that this district provides alternative ed to, that's not a possibility. Their second life away from the district may, just include prison. But I think that many African American people, especially the males, really don't even understand the purpose of education because it's not beneficial, and nor has it been beneficial over the years. We entered this public school system through Brown versus the Board of Education. And I hear all the time that it's public policy is the reason why African Americans are not successful. The real reason is that African Americans don't attend the board meeting. I've been coming to the board meeting for 20 years. And there are a few African Americans that understand the public policy issues that they're responsible for. Public education is a responsibility. And it's your responsibility as a parent to ensure that your child is not failing. When the child fails and there is no accountability, that's what we elected board members for. But you're a fool if you believe that someone else is going to look after your interests. I have tried for many, many years to come to this board and share my knowledge of my success with my children. And quite frankly, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And the outreach to Black families is 0 or none. And the LCAP process was supposed to ensure that that happened. And it's still not happening. And because the board voted that they would have a special committee to oversee that input, that eliminates the civic right of any person in the district attempting to understand what their role is. And I suggest that you guys change or think about that seriously, because education is a civil right, a right to each individual who enters the public school system. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Moving on to 8.0, the consent agenda. Member Hanson.
I'd like to pull item 8.1A, please.
The entirety of 8.1A?
Yes.
Okay. Well, since it's the first item, I'll allow that. Since it's the first item, why don't you Why don't we discuss that one item first, and then we'll take on the
I
rest
would-
of the agenda.
I'd move the rest of the consent agenda if you want to
Okay.
do that.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 8.1A.
I just had some questions. There's two items. The first one is a contract that's being recommended to us, let to public sector personnel consultants. And maybe this might be something for our classified employees to address if Ian's here from SAIU at some point later this meeting. But it's a request to do a study on classified employees, the classification and compensation study. And the dollar amount, $152,000, just struck me as a lot of money and something that is that something that we could potentially do in-house? If not, what are we doing to capture the value of this beyond just the study that's being done? But how do we help, train our own HR personnel so we can minimize the need to do contracts like this? Because it just stuck out to me. I just wanted to get a little bit more information on this item. And then there's one additional one after this.
Thank you, Member Hanson. I'm going to try to address a few of those questions, and then I have asked our interim chief business officer to address the cost factor of your question. My understanding is that the district has had multiple conversations about revisiting our org structure along with our positions and compensation for our classified staff. This has been a series of conversation over the past 2 years. We've been looking at ways to adjust and realign position titles with the appropriate compensation for like positions, not only within our regional partners in this district, but also making sure that we are actually designing job descriptions that are comparable to other positions. The district has been having conversations about restructuring and making sure that we have the type of information necessary to design positions. I'm going to have our interim chief of staff, chief of business officer, speak a little bit about the RFP process that that
people are doing on eBay or doing it on Craigslist or whatever else? Are we up to date with the best way to dispose and getting the best value, so we're being the best fiscal stewards we can be?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, intend to vote for item 8.18 or entertain a motion. You move to approve. Thank you. You have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving then on to item 9.0, 9.1, employee organization reports. I'll call them out one at a time. CSA. Nobody's approaching. SCTA.
Good evening. My name is David Fisher, and First Vice President of SCTA. I want to begin by thanking Superintendent Banda and the board for an opportunity to speak to you tonight. By the way, Nikki Milewski, our president, regrets that she can't be here tonight. She had to take her children to UC San Francisco to see their specialist before their care had transitioned due to the unlawful health care changes. At this point, it's no secret that teachers, both active and retired, have been outraged by the district's unilateral action concerning changes to the health plan. And unfortunately, the decision that you, as the board, made on October 2nd, 2014, to unanimously ratify our contract has not been followed by representatives of the district. Since then, representatives of the district have been resorting to spin, for lack of a better word, to justify the district's bad decision. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time we've seen this. At the end of 2012-13, this board made a very controversial decision to close 7 schools. Now, during that time, one of the schools is, many of you know, where my school, CB Wire, where my daughter attended and I taught at. But you were told the decision had to be made because money had to be saved because of a financial crisis, much as you're being told the same thing about the health care. Last spring, I was part of a task force that convened with the district to study the decline in enrollment. What we've learned in a document that I just provided to you tonight that you might not have seen before contradicts the claim. The result of the closures not only didn't save money, it accelerated the migration of students from these closed schools, and rather than save the district, it's actually costing the district between $1.5 and $3 million a year. So this document that you have here, if you analyze it, shows each school, how many students left each school, and how many schools left the whole district. What I did on the blue page you see is I just took the 7 closed schools, added them up, and they added to 21% of the entire enrollment left the district. Now, to come to an analysis of exactly how much they lost, you have to figure out how much would have left. But if you look at the other schools, and our general enrollment decline is maybe 1% or 2% a year. So you have to conclude that is really in the upwards of $3 million. It's the same kind of fuzzy math that's being used to justify the changes to our health care. Ultimately, responsibility for protecting the educational capacity for Sacramento students rests with you. You ratified the contract that a district is not abiding by, and as of today, you're condoning those actions by your own failure to act. As a board, you can't say that you don't know. As a community, we can say you won't act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. SEIU. Teamsters. UPE. Moving on to item 9.2, District Parent Advisory Committees, Community Advisory Committee.
Good evening, President Wu, Vice President Hansen, board members, and Superintendent Banda. I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm the chair of the Community Advisory Committee, and just want to thank you for letting us come to these meetings and provide these monthly updates. I have a report for December. I would just want to thank Superintendent Banda. We were really grateful that you came to our meeting back in November, and we got to learn a little bit about your background and discuss special education needs. So thank you for that. We had our December special education workshop called Engaging Students with Special Needs in the Common Core state standards. And I want to thank our district academic office as well as our special education inclusive practices coaches for speaking at our meeting and our workshop. And also thank you to Board Member Rodriguez, whose attendance and contributions were very helpful at our meeting, and we appreciate your involvement, and please keep coming back. We have some upcoming meetings. Our annual planning meeting, we'll be planning for the 2015-16 school year on January 13th. January 27th is our next CAC general meeting, and we'll be talking about 504 plans, and Barbara Cronick will be joining us. February 10th is our workshop on positive behavior supports, and we don't have a speaker confirmed yet for that. February 24th is our general meeting, and we will be discussing anti-bullying. And Jessica Wharton, the bullying prevention specialist from the district, will be coming to help facilitate our discussion. Just to also, the CAC is continuing to hope that for the LCAP advisory committee that the superintendent and trustee selection process will enable our CAC special education parents to participate on the committee. And we did present some concerns at the last meeting about the special education student inclusion and the teachers' collective bargaining agreement. And we're looking forward to beginning a dialogue on that and working together to find potential solutions. We also wanted to go over our continuous efforts to support parents, and we're really trying to increase our direct support and resources that we provide to parents. We are encountering some obstacles and barriers, and we could really use your help. And I know that as board members, you probably receive questions from parents directly. If you ever do, we do have to update our business cards, but I did provide you with a business card with my contact information, and you can refer people to me and to our website. So we really would love some assistance in working through some of these barriers. We've had very low attendance and membership, and we've come up with some ideas that we want to explore, but we'd really like all of your help as well to help us get through some of these things. Thank you.
Ms. Sutherland. District Advisory Council. District English Learner Advisory Committee. Gifted and Talented Education Advisory Committee. Sacramento Council of Parent-Teacher Associations.
Good evening. Terrence Gladney, President, Sacramento Council PTAs. We spent probably about the last month or so really working with our units to get all the compliance matters in place. So that includes, membership dues, insurance premiums. And it's a really wide scale. Some schools, have a history of, being really substantial in terms of parent engagement. Others are kind of fledgling. Others we have who have been longstanding PTAs, some in existence over 75 years who are, kind of at a point due to, a bunch of different issues, whether it's, absorbing students from closed schools and really having to recreate their culture. But there a lot of them are at a crossroads. And I think it's consistent across the state and the nation that parent engagement as a whole is challenged, due to a number of different factors. And I see as we go out to these school sites, parents and community members really struggle and feel a burden and an obligation to honor, tradition and keep these units going. And sometimes it reaches a point where they realize that the best thing for them may be to take a step back, whether for a year or a little bit more and just reassess. And just because something hasn't been done for a while doesn't mean that they need to continue it, especially if it's not working. And sometimes we get so caught up in the work that we don't have an opportunity to do that, in a really authentic way. But some of our units are kind of at that point. They've been around for a while, and they have to take a step back because either they don't have enough officers or don't have enough members, or just the burden of the compliance or the work is just so much that they really need to focus on rebuilding their community. And I think that's kind of where we are as a district as well. We have new board members coming in. We have LCFF. We have a lot of opportunity to take a step back. And I think that if we just keep pushing forward for the sake of pushing forward, then we're not going to be able to assess the landscape in an honest way. So I would like us to do that. I made a personal public comment at the last board meeting, not knowing coincidentally that the next day an article in the SACB was going to come out about mandatory voluntary hours. The focus of the article was about charter schools, but 3 of our own public schools in our own district were highlighted because of the work of Loretta Calvo, the SACB. There was a quote in there from the district that the language on these schools' websites does not reflect the reality, but I have board members and I know a lot of parents of some of these schools that were highlighted that is in fact the reality. So, the problem is a lot of these schools are the ones that we hold up as beacons of light of the successes of the district. And what it does is put an unnecessary burden on some of those parents at the schools who are working just as hard because it is an uneven playing field. All schools can benefit from mandatory, parent volunteers. So what are we going to do to make sure that it is, a level playing field? Governor Brown said when he was introducing the LCFF that equal treatment for students in unequal situations is not justice, so it's not justice for the schools in our district to have a very uneven playing field. So I would like to see us all, whether it's you as board members, looking at reaching out to your community for LCAP advisory committee members, whether you guys create additional committees within your own trustee areas to address some of these. We really need to take a step back and see what's truly working for every child. And I don't say all children because, yes, there's a whole subset of children that we have, but if we don't look at the individual needs of each subgroup and each child, then we're not really going to address the whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.3, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent?
Thank you, Board President Wu. Tonight I wanted to give an update on my first 100 days in our school district. Since September, I've been visiting schools and observing principals, teachers, staff, and students in our classrooms and out on the playgrounds. I haven't made it out to all 75 schools, but that's the plan for me to make it out to all of them way before the end of the school year. I will continue visiting the rest of the schools as soon as I can fit them into my schedule. Also, I've been meeting regularly with our labor partners and will continue to meet with them on a monthly basis in order to just being able to build that relationship, being able to hear from them some of the issues and concerns, and be able to work in a collaborative fashion to resolve them. I've met with community members and community advisory groups, including, but not limited to, the Sacramento Council of PTAs, DLAC, DAC, the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education, and the Black Parallel School Board. I've met with nonprofit partners, including the Parent Teacher Home Visit Project, of which early on in my my beginning here in the school district, I had a chance to go out and make a home visit with a couple of our teachers and principal. I've also met with the California Endowment, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, La Familia, Hmong Women's Heritage, and I visited with Capital a couple times. And Capital is a consortium of Asian nonprofit organizations here in the county. I've met with elected officials, again, not limited to, but includes Sacramento County Supervisor Phil Cerna, our former board president, Patrick Kennedy, who is starting up here pretty soon, as also a county supervisor, City Councilman Jay Chenier, City Councilman Steve Hansen, Senator Richard Pan, Assembly Member Kevin McCarty. Through the Sacramento County Office of Ed, I've been meeting regularly with superintendents in our neighboring districts, which is very helpful for all of us to be able to kind of share our best practices, but also share some of the issues and concerns that we have facing us every day in our work. I have met business community leaders at a reception hosted a couple weeks ago by Chet Hewitt, the CEO of Sierra Health Foundation, which was a very nice event and included a really good turnout of folks from throughout the community. I've met with Sacramento Police Chief Samuel Summers. I've met with the media and appeared on a number of TV morning shows. I've met with school neighbors and volunteers. I've met bus drivers and cafeteria workers. I've attended parent leadership classes and school assemblies. And last month, I held a dessert and coffee gathering with the superintendent, which was open to anyone who wanted to come and hear a little bit about me, but hear about the direction of the district, but also have an opportunity to ask questions and express concerns. I have 2 more of the dessert and coffee meetings that are scheduled for next week. On Monday evening at 6, I'll be hosting that meeting at Sam Brannan Middle School. And then on Thursday, also at 6 o'clock, we'll meet at Luther Burbank High School. Hopefully, our folks in the community can attend one of those 2 meetings. I will continue to get out in the community to learn and to create relationships that we need in order to move this work forward. What I'm learning validates what I've heard about Sacramento City before I even came here, and that is the diversity of this district is its strength. Every neighborhood and every zip code in our community supports our schools and wants the best for our schools and our students. There's respect for different viewpoints and a willingness to collaborate. We've heard a lot of talk in Sacramento about pockets of excellence in our district. But we have more than just pockets of excellence. We have great people who care deeply about our students and are committed to providing them with the very best education possible. There are wonderful things happening throughout the district, but conversely, we also have our challenges. But if we continue to focus on equity, on access, and on opportunities for every student, we can meet these challenges and then some. At my first dessert and coffee meeting at Bancroft Elementary, I heard a lot of good ideas about ways to improve our service to students and to our community. I hope to keep that momentum rolling through next week and beyond, and hope to see many of you, hopefully at either one of those, at either Brannan or Burbank. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Item 9.4, President's Report. I just want to say that tomorrow, Sacramento County will be certifying the results of the November 4th election. And at the following next meeting, December 18th, we will be welcoming 2 new board members. Those board members will be sworn in officially tomorrow and will be joining us on the dais on the 18th. And we'll have a little swearing-in ceremony for them, as well as Member Hanson and myself. In January, I had the opportunity today to meet with Comcast, and I will be bringing back in January just a short briefing on the updates of the Internet Essentials program, which pushes out computers and Internet access to low-income families. I think there's some new and exciting things and programs that this district can engage in with its older computers that they're intending to surplus out, that we can assist our low-income families to acquiring computers at very low cost and internet service with very low cost. And more excitingly, part of that program that Comcast offers today is teaching free digital skills to the families and training for the families with that internet access, so that all our families in the Sacramento City Unified School District can be engaged with their children. Thank you. Item 9.5, Student Members Report. Member Saito.
Good evening. I'd just like to start out with saying that there are 2 more weeks until winter vacation, which my fellow classmates and I are very excited about. Also that through our extensive research of the SAC, we have created 5 new initiatives that we will be choosing from by next Monday, I believe. And the top 5 were drugs and alcohol, food, technology, class enrichment, and dress code. From these, we're going to choose 3 initiatives that we will work on for the rest of the year, and probably even on into next year with going into depth through it, which we have not done before. Also, our next SAC meeting will be on the 16th of December, which is next Tuesday, I believe. And I would like to invite any of the board members that would like to come and see what we're doing during those meetings, since we will be voting and working on our initiatives at that meeting probably. Also, mentioning Superintendent Bonda's dessert and coffee meetings, I was able to go to the one he held at Bancroft a few weeks ago, which I didn't like being able to be there. I was one of the only students there, which somewhat surprised me, but I was a little bit late, so it was understandable. But it was very interesting to see some of my old teachers there, since I went to Bancroft myself, and to see what they had to say about the district and all the interesting questions they asked the superintendent. They were quite interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.6, information sharing by board members.
President, well, just a quick question. What time is the meetings next Tuesday? Or if you can at least email us and let us know exactly. Just keep, All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.6, information sharing by board members. Member Hanson.
Just reporting that I'm continuing our work on the Floyd Farms project at the Leotata Floyd Elementary School. So I'd like to welcome people to come be part of that. We have a consortium with our county supervisor, our city council member, our district, of course, and the principal and local community, Health Professionals High School and Leotata Floyd. The developer there has agreed as part of an MOU that was signed a number of years ago to build a 2.5-acre farm that's going to be a working farm directly adjacent to the school. So we've been involving the community and are having a community charrette next Thursday, I believe, at Health Professions High School. And we expect to have a lot of folks from the community looking at that to help us design what the garden's actually going to have. It's been a really exciting project. So looking forward to having that come to fruition. I believe that's, and I'll be joining the superintendent at Sam Brannon on Monday night. So hope that we'll have a good turnout, and I'm going to do a call. So I'll actually make sure that we invite students too, to make sure that they're part of that as well. It's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Member Rodriguez.
President Wu. We seem to be having some mic problems now. Okay, it's working. So before I start with what I have to share, I do want to add on to Superintendent Banda's list of people that he met with. He also met with Assembly Member Roger Dickinson. As part of that, I wanted to make sure that the proper acknowledgement was provided for that. Since the last board meeting, there's been a lot of activity going on in Area 5, or a lot of stuff that I've been assisting with. So we'll start off with the pride and joy of Area 5 is Luther Burbank High School and their football team. They made it to the playoffs this year. Unfortunately, they didn't get past the playoff game, but it's just an honor to even make it to that level. So I wanted to congratulate the team and go team, go Titans. And next year we'll be in the championships. I also attended with the superintendent, Banda, and other staff of the district, the Cesar Chavez unveiling of a Cesar Chavez bust at Cesar Chavez Intermediate School. And then going from there, the day of our board meeting on November 20th was the announcement from President Obama on the immigration executive order, and like to know what the district is doing to outreach to our families that may qualify not only for DACA but now DAPA. And so I'd like to put that onto the radar. And also I attended a press conference with the Mexican Consul of Sacramento or of Northern California on this very issue. I was there representing my interest in the immigration reform matter. I also attended the Mexican Consulate Oatley Awards ceremony, which is a very high honor that is bestowed upon a U.S. Citizen from the Mexican government. Superintendent Banda was in attendance at this special event, and he got to meet many of our leadership members at that wonderful event. Sadly, my heart is heavy, to see the outturn of events surrounding the Ferguson, Missouri grand jury report, and it makes me wonder if SCL, what we're doing today, if that won't make a change at some point in the future, where it makes all the difference when we're looking at social, emotional needs of individuals and the level of understanding that we will have as a result of SEL and the teachings that are taking place. So I hope that in the future gets changed. On a more positive note, I attended the We Connect healthcare fair November 22nd at Sacramento Charter High School. It was there that I also got to talk to the Comcast representative. And I look forward to working with President Wu on that matter on a go-forward basis. But also, I want to make an announcement for all those who are here in our audience and maybe viewing that there's also another great opportunity, and it's with our free phones that the government sponsors. So it's free cell phones, and it has unlimited minutes, unlimited text. And they do that, they offer that to families so that they can advance in life. They could have a phone for their child in school so that they can be contacted. So just in case something happens with their children. Also, so for job opportunities for families who are in a low income status. So, I think I'd like to have not only Comcast come to provide an update, but also to have that free phone service come forward and do a presentation for our board. As you heard earlier, I did attend the CAC meeting on December 2nd, and I thoroughly enjoyed being there. I only intended to come in and just say my hellos, but I ended up staying for the whole meeting and learned from the parents that were in attendance their concerns and their viewpoint on how their children learn in the classroom. And we had some excellent staff who are sitting here in the audience, and then some beyond that were teaching. And I totally forgot about this, the close reading text, visual and written. So it was very interesting exercises. So a couple of reminders. I want to remind you that the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee applications are now online and available. And when Mr. Ross comes back, I'll ask him to talk about the website and where that you can find that on our website. A reminder about the December 11th dessert and coffee with Superintendent Banda. And lastly, I'd like to thank, and one of them is here, I'd like to thank our incoming board members, Ms. Jessie Ryan and Ellen Cochran, for taking the time out of their day to meet with me in advance of coming onto our board here. With these two individuals coming onto our board, I'm very delighted to say that we will have a majority of female presence on our board. That would make 4 females on our board. Yes.
And the student member.
Yeah, and a female student board member. So that would make 5 females altogether up on the dais. I think it's historical. I think it's something to be celebrated. And I really look forward to seeing how the voice of this board is going to change. And, I look forward to it in the future. So I think it's a story to be told. And with that, I think I'm done with my announcements. I would like to take the opportunity, though, to pick up on something that I stated at the last board meeting about the importance of board members receiving training. I am very happy about my service on the board in the last 6 years. I couldn't have asked for a more delightful time to be here. I know that it was looked at by others as a more difficult time because we were in a budget crisis. But because of my training and background in education in the field of finance and business, I felt like I was the right person to be here for that period of time. But on a go-forward basis, now that we're slightly coming out of that recession and we're going to go forward from there, I'd like to remind the board about our responsibility to protect the interest of the district. Because when you protect the interest of the district, you're protecting the interest of our students in the long range. Everything happens in a cycle. So far the trend was a 10-year cycle that we were on an upswing and then it would go down below. And so we have to plan accordingly. We have to be responsible more today than we were a few years back. Because the responsibility comes in preparing for that downturn in economy in the next 10 years. And so, or it could happen shorter, could happen a little longer, but we have to begin to lay some very key cornerstones to prepare for our future. And with that, that means that we have some opportunities that are present before us. We have opportunities to create funding streams, revenue streams. And I can tell you that the consultants that I've been sitting down with, my CPAs that I've been sitting down with, they have all looked at our budgets and told me we need to be in the business of growing revenue. And so, I welcome other board members to sit down and talk to me about what that means, what it looks like for our district, and the opportunities that we have present before us, so that we're taking that sense of responsibility and going forward. And I also encourage that we make a plan, and a fiscal plan, and plan for the future. With that, I am now done with my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Moving on then to item 10.0, board workshops / strategic plan and other initiatives. 10.1, approve resolution number 2815 regarding the authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $34 million Sacramento City Unified School District General Obligation Refunding Bond and approving certain actions and documents in connection therewith. Geraldo. Oh, there you are.
Good evening, President Wood, members of the board, Superintendent Banda. At the last board meeting, we discussed this refunding our 2000 series, 2005-2007 Measure I funds. The reason we're doing this is to save about $3 million to our taxpayers. We owe it to them. This is all a benefit for our community, for our taxpayers. And Mr. Small will go over the presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm also here with Bruce Kearns of Stiefel Nichols, Superintendent Banda, President Wu. I was here on November 20th, and we reviewed a pretty extensive presentation on the general obligation refunding. And just very concisely, there was a 2005 general obligation bond, about $21 million of bonds that can be refunded, and for savings of approximately $3 million. There was also a 2007 bond. Savings were about $585,000. It was a little bit lower than what we would like to see in order to refinance those bonds. So before you, there is a resolution. It authorizes the refinancing of the 2005 and 2007 bonds to the extent that there is net present value savings of approximately 5%. And net present value is essentially savings in today's dollars. So what that means with respect to the 2005 bonds is we are looking for minimum savings of $1.1 million, and with net present value savings of $3 million today, we feel very comfortable with meeting that projection. Again, with the 2007 bonds, as I told President Wu on November 20th, we really need to see savings of approximately $750,000 to realistically refund those bonds and present the most benefit to the taxpayers. So we're asking for the board's consideration of that resolution. That resolution will also approve form of documents. Those documents will be completed at the time of sale. Most importantly, there is a preliminary official statement. It does have some blanks in there. Those blanks will be completed with information that the board is going to consider tonight. When Mr. Castillo presents the first interim report, some tables that we have ordered from California Municipal Statistics, which will be available on Monday, and also the board is scheduled to approve the district's audit report on December 18th. So when we have that information, the preliminary official statement before you will be complete and finalized, and tonight it's in draft form, and that's okay. But we just want you to know why it's in draft form and when it will be finalized. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and if there's any market questions, certainly look to our underwriter.
Thank you, Mr. Small. I don't think there are any public comments, so I'm going to move to board members. Member Hanson.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm looking at slide 8. Bond insurance cost of, I assume that's a cost, $82,522.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that's for?
Sure.
Why we're paying it?
So currently, the district has an A-plus credit rating, and bonds are priced based on their credit rating, and one way of enhancing that credit rating is through bond insurance. So the reason why the district would purchase bond insurance is to lower costs. And Mr. Kearns and I will be looking at, is there value in terms of spending that money to purchase bond insurance, and we would only spend that money if, in fact, the $80,000 expenditure would save more than that.
Savings that we mentioned here is achieved, the savings that Jeff just mentioned is achieved because the bond insurance company has a higher rating than the school district's A-plus rating. So the bond insurance companies that are operating today have AA ratings, another step or two above an A-plus rating. And as a consequence, investors are willing to accept lower interest rates for AA bonds than they would for A-plus bonds. As a consequence, all the interest rates are lower payments, and the analysis that Jeff just described is us comparing the benefit of those lower payments over the life of the bonds against the expense of acquiring the bond insurance. And if the savings overwhelms the expense in present value terms, then it would be a beneficial decision to purchase the bond insurance.
Yes, being in a school district, A-plus sounds pretty high. I don't know how you have double A's that we give out here, but so I assume that that's something you report back to the district that, whatever, if that expenditure, that money actually is able to save money, is that something that is going to come back to us at some point? You report that to Gerardo and to the superintendent?
Yeah, we could give you, once we close to the process, we can give you a summary where we end up, what we did, and that's what we had done in the past. For now, just estimated numbers based on the best knowledge that we have now, but we will summarize that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you, Member Hanson. Member Rodriguez.
Mine's just an issue of process. So the report that we have before us in the packet is not filled out, and of course, because we have to place the loans on the market and get them, with the the interest rate.
Correct.
It's an I word, but it was a different one. So I can't recall the process though, like after all of the final numbers come in, does it come back to us for final approval, or is this, remind me of the process after this?
So in the first part of January, which by the way is an excellent time to sell bonds because the markets are relatively quiet, we'll be working with Mr. Kearns' firm to attract investors. Those investors will bid interest rates. Those interest rates will actually establish what the interest rates are that the district will get on those refinancing. That happens in a very fast time, and there's really no ability to come back to the district to sort of approve those rates, but we will be working with staff on that. The resolution before you, you're delegating your authority and your trust in us to come back with a deal that's going to save, in the case of the 2005 bonds, at least $1.1 million. So that you're setting a minimum threshold of savings, and like I said, savings are considerably higher than that, more than twice.
So my question was, when do we get the final result back to us of saying, here's what we placed, here's the cost savings total?
So following the bond sale, there will be a written memorandum which will be available to staff and members of the board, and we're happy to come back and present that in just a very quick, short presentation to the board if you would like.
Yeah, I think I'd like that. I think
Yeah.
for full disclosure, it would be more of a best practice.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep, happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. And to be certain, the savings are inured to the taxpayers, isn't that correct? Not to the
100%.
district. And so by doing this, we can show the taxpayers that we're good stewards of their money.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, and to confirm, Mr. Ross, there are no public comments? Thank you. So if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Moving on then to item 10.2, the 2014-2015 first interim financial report. Mr. Castillo.
Good evening, President Wood, members of the board, and Superintendent Banda. Let me give Anna a minute to present that. I got the reason we're presenting the 2014-15 first interim is because Ed Code 42130 says that we must submit the first interim to the County Office of Education prior to December 15. The first interim report is dated as of October 31st. The county will review our first interim in detail. They will communicate to us. They will either agree or disagree with our submission, and then after that, they will submit to the state. We will discuss in more detail for a code 42130 in the next slide. The first interim report is over 100 pages. The overview will be what we'll be discussing tonight. We will discuss, in summary, the general fund. We will review the enrollment, the AD analysis. We will discuss some budget realities that we will deal with, such as increasing utilities, increases in stairs and pairs, and increases in healthcare costs. We will also analyze our cash flow and budget. We will discuss our fund balance, our fiscal conditions, and what will be next. What does really A Code 4213 says? It really says that the districts or LEAs must certify either financial position is positive, qualified, or negative. What does this mean? Positive means that the district could say that they will meet their obligations for current year plus 2 years. Qualify means that they might not meet their obligations in the next 2 years. They might meet it this year, but not the following 2 years. And negative means they will not meet their obligations. Tonight, we are proposing a positive certification. That means if we will meet our financial obligations for current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. So the next one we will discuss the revenues. Like I said, the required funds are over 100 pages, but in here, we will show where our revenues come from. And between 76 from the local control funding formula that includes property taxes, plus 11% from other state, we have about 86% our funds depend from the state. So this is risky because the majority of our funding sources are from one funding source. So the bottom line is this, our district does as well as the state does. When the good economy the state has, our district does well, that's good as well. So we just discussed revenues. The next 3 slides, we will discuss expenditures. This one is the unrestricted general fund expenditures between certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits. We have about 89% in costs for salaries and benefits. The rest, the other 11%, is just books and supplies and operating expenses. So that was the unrestricted. Now the restricted funds. What does restricted means is by law, funds that must be expended for a certain purpose. So those funds include all the federal funds, such as Title I, Title II, Title III, some state funds, such as Common Core, Quality Investment Act, or QIA. So these are those funds right here. Again, although not as much as unrestricted, we still have about 67% spent on salaries and benefits. So the previous 2 slides, we discussed funds by object, certificated salaries, teachers, classified salaries, anybody who doesn't have a teaching credential. How about we ask ourselves, what is the total compensation for instructional support? What is that? That is total is 78%. So it's 64 in instruction, direct instruction, that's like classroom teachers. They work directly with the students. The other ones is 14% instructional related services. It will be like principals, principals, the office at the schools. And then we have people services, about 8%, that they include counselors, health services, psychologists, and then we have ancillary service that's about that is curricular activities for like sports at the schools, and then we have the general administration 4%, that is the board office of education, pretty much all the Cerna Center staff, and then we have plant services, which includes all the maintenance and operations, custodians, and custodians office. SPANS is what is SPANS for? SPANS, okay. So all the plant services. So that's how we look at expenditures by function. So our enrollment, our ADA, we continue on the decline. However, the rate is not as steep as before. Why is so important enrollment ADA? We all know that, but just as a reminder, we get paid based on the students attending school. So it's really important that students attend school, not because it's where we need them to attend school in order to learn, but it also helps our bottom line financially. So some of the budget realities that we must deal with, these are pretty much done deal with just our utilities. Our water has increased 19.3% since 2011-12. And the reason we put here budget is because we're projecting it to increase another 10% for next year. CalSTRS and CalPERS, between both of them, we will have an increase of about $5.3 million for next year. So, and by 2017-18, this retirement costs will be almost double than what we were paying just last year. So another budget reality is our healthcare costs. Why this slide was presented before, but what we can hear, we almost have, we are declining enrollment. We almost have the same number of retirees as current employees. And this could be it is a big issue because we haven't set funds aside to cover our obligations or promises that we did to our employees many years ago. We must start putting funds aside as soon as possible. And we started, but we need to do more than what we're doing. So our cash flow, I would say what a difference a year make. Just last year, we borrowed $26 million in order to pay our bills. We are projecting we don't have any cash deferrals from the state. Therefore, we are not anticipating borrowing any money for 2014 and 15. So for next year, the budget, we are assuming that our local control funding formula rate, it will be about 21%. So the fund balance, while discussing the fund balance, so you will notice that starting in 13-14, the fund balance increased. So it has increased, but it has switched. It has switched from restricted to unrestricted, and that's because the law changes on the local control funding formula. So we will have for economic uncertainties about 3.8%. So we asked our questions. The state requires a minimum of 2%, a minimum of 2% for reserve for economic uncertainties. Is the 2% enough for our district? It's about $8.5 million. That will cover us about 8 days of payroll only. Just the September payroll was $30.3 million. You can see that the 2% is, to me, is very clear. It's not nearly enough. So our cash flow is there in your package. I know it's really small, but we are projecting a positive, and we will be able to meet our obligations. We don't have a negative fund balance at the bottom, so that's where we are. Another thing is, you will notice that the average daily attendance, because we are on declining enrollment, we had a word there funded because we get funded based on prior year because we are on declining enrollment. So the good news is that for the first time since 2007-8, we are submitting to you a positive interim report. We had a fiduciary responsibility to maintain fiscal solvency, and we need to keep an eye. You will notice that the arrow is not really high in the green. It's just barely passing the qualify. It took us a very long time get out of that, and we need to be cautious of that. What are the next steps? The next steps is we will continue communication with the County Office of Education, and next month, Mr. Smith and myself, we will attend the governor's budget proposal, where we will analyze and review, and we will, the budget moving document, we will adjust for 15, 16, and 17, 18 if needed. We really need to work together with the LCAP, and I always want to say really the ending fund balance, and as Mr. Member Rodriguez mentioned, we need to be really careful where we are. We are at the hole. It's really easy to be in the hole. It's very difficult to get out. We must stay there. We are there, and we are cautious. Just 2 years ago, we were in this situation, right? So we just don't want to go back. That's where we are. So this is the end of the presentation, and Mr. Smith and I are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Do you have any public comments?
We have 2 comments on this item from Karen Sweat and Terrence Gladney.
Hi, good evening, Board and Superintendent Banda. Most of you know that when I get up to talk about the budget, I usually go into a rant. So tonight, I'm going to do all I can to not gush. How many pages in this PowerPoint?
17.
Oh gosh, where are the other 72 that we used to see? So that is honestly, we have not only a reasonable PowerPoint that even though I missed most of it, sorry we were late, it's really good information, it's really valuable, it's concise, it's direct, it's what we need. We don't need 68 pages. The fiscal data that's in the rest of the budget is what we need to be looking at. And thank goodness we're not preaching doom and gloom, even though we have one of our biggest budget deficits that we've had in the last 6 years. Only one other year in fiscal year 11-12 did we have a budget deficit that's bigger than the 11.6 on this positive budget that we're submitting. So we're not going to have scare tactics with these guys. All I can say is I hope that they stick around for a long time. They're realistic. He doesn't have all the numbers in the places, in the boxes that I'd like to see. I'd like to see a higher number in the teacher line in the 1101s, in the 1100s, and a little bit less in the 1900s and the 2900s, and a little bit less, in the 1300s and 2300s. So if you don't know what those mean, go back and look. It's more, the 1300s and the 2300s are the admin. Those are the budget lines that went up a little bit. The teacher line went down a little bit. I would reverse that. Anyway, keep them around.
Good evening again, Terrence Gladney. My comment isn't directly related to this. Indirectly, I guess it is. At our site council meeting at Cabrillo on Monday, I'm the DAC rep. I applaud our new principal, Samantha Holmes, for engaging us and supporting us around monitoring. The first report that we looked at, though, kind of threw us for a loop. Like last year, I guess we got about $50,000 or so for English learners. According to what our principal was trained on, or the training she received on budgeting, our English learner money is now $10,000. So the way they understand LCFF, with the number of English learners that we have, that shouldn't even be close to accurate. So I guess my bigger question to staff is, because I did hear that some things were mislabeled as far as, resource codes and so forth, or funds around the LCFF money. So I just want to make sure that our administrators, who really are the guiding force at our school sites, are getting the correct information so that this money is going where it should be, because I know that we should be getting more than $10,000 for our English learners at Cabrillo, but that raises a question: if it's at Cabrillo, then how many other school sites is it at? So I would like those questions answered specifically for Cabrillo, and then hopefully we can open up the dialogue for the rest of our school sites. Thank you.
Member Arroyo.
Thank you, President Wu. More than questions, I have a few comments, and would like to thank Mr. Castillo for not only the very poignant and direct presentation, as Ms. Sweat said, exactly what we needed, right? Poignant and direct and to the point. And congratulate you in the fact that for the last 6 years since I first got sworn to this board, this is the very first time that we get such a positive presentation, budget numbers-wise, in that the very first meeting that I had 6 years ago, we were presented with tens of millions of dollars that we had to cut. And since then, it's been a very difficult road. And I want to, number one, thank you for the work that you yourself have been doing for all this time, but also to the rest of the partners in the district, teachers, classified, every other bargaining unit, because every single unit had to take a tremendous amount of hits and sacrifices in order to make today a reality, in the sense that we have a budget that it's balanced. Not only is balanced, but it's on a positive. I mean, we have not had that here since I can remember.
Yeah.
What's it?
Yeah, I will take the credit, but I will say it's you and the whole district, because, like you say, it's a lot of sacrifices. You know, I want to say that we count the beans, we really don't grow the beans. So, but you make decisions. So that's really that. So I just want to laugh.
For those that didn't hear over my laughter, he says he counts the beans, he doesn't grow the beans. But I'm not making my comments in a tone of congratulations as much as or celebration, because there's quite a lot of work left to do. There are a lot of questions. There's a lot of important financial questions that we still need to grapple with. But nonetheless, wanted to welcome you in position of interim Chief Financial Officer and welcome you in this particular positive financial outlook for the district, and look forward to your continued leadership and guiding the district in its finances.
Thank you.
No others? Member Hanson, and then Member Rodriguez.
Let Member Rodriguez go first.
No, you went first. Come on,
really.
hit your button.
All right. I know you like going last on talking about money. Well, one, noticing the decline in the enrollment obviously is something that's, it brings up a point that Member Rodriguez had made, and that I know we've talked about how we can figure out a way to grow revenues. It's not going to be, we're lucky that the legislature changed the funding formula, which benefited our district. But that money expires in a couple of years unless it's renewed by the taxpayers through a vote. How do we turn around our declining enrollment? And in some places in our district, my district is almost all built out. There's not going to be a big influx of students there. There's some fluctuations, but we need to do more partnering with the district, with our employee, our partners, of building better academic programs, so we're attracting more parents and students to come to our district. And I know we can do that, and I know that we can do that, but we can only do it when we're doing it together. For instance, William Land Elementary School, we've got a Mandarin immersion program starting in kindergarten. We're adding 30 students a year to that one elementary school, and half of them are coming from out of district. So we can absolutely do it. We absolutely have the talent and our staff to make that happen. That's my challenge to all of us together to work on that. And that's how we're going to stop declining enrollment. I'm really shocked by the increase for our utilities. I guess I know my bill's gone up, but I didn't realize the district had spent so much, and it raises the question. Obviously, in spite of the rain, we're still in a drought. And I know one thing that I had been advised by Mr. Ross, that we're working on collecting information about how much reduction we've had in water usage. I'm still waiting to hear that report. I assume that it's something that we're working on, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then we can figure out what's the district doing to use our Prop 39 money to better our facilities, or lowering energy costs. What are we doing to make our water usage go down so we're not getting saddled with huge increases like this?
Yeah, I just want to add real quickly, we have reduced our consumption of water pretty significantly. And I don't know if you have that number, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say something like 30% or more.
So we reduced that, but what happened is that the city and the county add meters, through, we didn't have meters before. So before we got paid based on the number of students that the school were. So we had to report to how many students we have, and that's kind of like the average they bill us. So they put the meters, so the consumption might go down, but the rates, because of the meters, so at the cost. And so we have been, from the facility side of the house, they were watching. So we really need to be careful about, a little leak in a toilet, something could be added to, when you pay for that. And so I think we did spend a lot of energy and time on the electricity, and actually we had done a much good job, and we reduced the water because when the drought comes, but it probably have been more, the costs have been higher if we had not been conscious of the drought. Yes, the rates went up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're proposing it to go up again, so that's why we're doing that.
I was surprised when I've talked to principals over the last couple of years, asking them what they're doing to save water and energy, and they really kind of always had a little bit of a blank stare. And I asked them if they look at their bills. They don't get their bills.
Yeah, they don't.
So they have no idea, a principal has no idea how much they're spending for their electricity or water at their school. I think that's something that we should explore to be able to empower. How can you empower a principal and the school to lower their energy or utility usage if they don't have that information? So that just is something that kind of was triggered when I saw that.
Yeah, we actually tell them once a year when we meet with them, but they are not responsible for the cost, so it's probably good to share that. So
I think that would be a good program for us to consider. And then, looking at our increases of, STRS and PERS, those are going up. It's a remarkable amount. We got extra money from the LCFF, but, the governor 3 months later kindly with the legislature and CTA and everyone else got involved, took it all back. So we're going to see a tripling in the amount of money that we're going to have to set aside. Now, it's the right thing to do because CalSTRS is so underfunded as CalPERS a little bit. So we need to do that, but we should also recognize that's going to be a gigantic hit on the budget, and we have to think about that ahead of time and not spend any extra money we might have today. I was also very concerned looking at the healthcare costs and looking at the increase on the number of participants. The number of retirees was very flat for many years, and then we've had a big spike in the last 2 years. If that trend continues, we'll be paying for the healthcare costs of more retirees than we have active employees, and yet obviously we put very, very little money aside to pay for future costs. We've only done that in the last 2 years since I've been on the board. And we never did it in the past, but we never had these incredible increases in healthcare costs. I don't think anyone anticipated that. Otherwise, I assumed that the district and our employee groups would have done the right thing. But when I tell the average voter, our average citizens, taxpayers, that we're paying for healthcare costs for our retired employees out of our current year budget, they're apoplectic. Nobody can believe that that's how we do our budget. So that's something that, once again, we're all going to have to work on together. And trust me, the public cannot believe that that's what we do. So time is not on our side, and we all need to work together. We've made those obligations. We need to keep those obligations. It's the right thing for us to do, to pay for health care for our current employees and our what we've committed in contracts. But I don't want us to turn to Stockton, San Bernardino, Vallejo, where courts have allowed public entities to break their contracts to their retirees. That's not where I want to find ourselves. But if we don't work ahead of time by setting money aside, that's exactly where we're going to be. And we might not be the ones that are sitting up here in the board, but our staff are going to be the ones who are going to be impacted on that. So we can't put our heads in the sand on that, and I hope that's something that we address. I had a question on page 13, the 2% requirement for the general fund reserve. Is that a minimum or a maximum?
Yeah,
I know that
is. Go ahead. Sorry,
I know that the law was changed. Once again, very, short-sighted by both the governor and CTA and the legislature who were involved in that, of requiring us to spend down all our reserves, thinking that somehow it's going to create a windfall. But Is it a minimum 2% or a maximum 2%?
That is the minimum is 2%.
What's
that is
the
minimum.
maximum?
And the maximum, my understanding under the current law is could not be more than double than that. So they could not be more than 4%. But the more that we learn about this new proposition is it will not be in effect until after the state puts money into this new proposition. So it could take a few years for that to happen. All your points are really good, and we need to think about Proposition 30 that it's a temporary tax, just around the corner. It's not in the multi-year projection because we're not required to do 2 years forward, but after that, those funds, the temporary tax expires. So what is going to happen? So that's, those of us who have been in the school districts for a while, we know that we go cycles, and those districts who better prepare for them when the budget cuts are better financial, they can plan for better.
Right.
Those cuts are not as painful when there's some planning. So it is the minimum. It is the minimum. That's what it is.
I know we all know that the governor said he believed it was a time certain that the taxes would expire, and he's shown no willingness to support an extension of the tax. So we also need to be very much aware that we might be living with a lot less money than we have now. So once again, the more forward funding we can do for retiree health care, pensions, the kinds of things like that that'll help us negotiate if we have any downturns in our budget is going to be really important. And I think that goes back to what Member Rodriguez had talked about. How do we grow the size of our budget with the things we can do? And that's great academic programs that attract parents and students to want to be in our schools. And then just my last question on page 14, is there an amount? I know we've done $1 million for the last couple of years of prepaying our health care, pre-funding our health care obligations for retirees. Is it listed in there? I see where it says OPEB, current year payments. I just didn't understand that. Maybe you could.
So what is,
so
the question is we have our OPEB costs as we go is about $25 million that we pay for retirees' costs. That is our cost that is now. So we have in the bottom.
So that $25 million approximately is paying for our current costs for our current healthcare costs. That's not money that's going into a fund to pay for future costs. That's today's money to pay for retirees' healthcare.
Correct. Pay as we go. And we have set up funds. This is 6 point, you will notice it's very small, but it's $6.8 million we have set up for the OPEB. Those months we had not write a check, but they are set aside for that. Part of the agreement with our bargaining units was that if there is some savings from our costs, from our health saving costs, they will go towards the OPEB. So we put their money there, and so we still in the process. So where we will end up with these changes in health benefits, and there's still certain things.
So that's the controversial amount of what could potentially be saved, depending on what happens with all the healthcare stuff. Could potentially be 6.877. All right, thank you. I didn't understand that exactly. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Wu. Well, I'm just going to go down your report and then write it back into the interim report that you have here. So I'm going to start with page 2. The utility increases. I think a good way of reinforcing conservative behavior is to acknowledge it and reward it. Just about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, we had the Luther Burbank students, the Beast Club, come and do a presentation of their energy efficiency exercise that they did at Luther Burbank. And one of the questions that I asked was, did we implement the recommendations? And we hadn't. And there were still those discussions to be held, and things that we actually need to acknowledge it and go forward and do it so that we can save at that level. But, you know, as I'm sitting here, as I was listening to the increase in the water and how we're on meters now, I reflect on our own behavior. Actually, with the meters, I first didn't like it, but in my case, my water bill's like $20 a month now, you know, because we practice extreme conservative behavior when it comes to water. And my reward is I don't have to pay the high bill that I was once paying, right? So how do we reflect that type of behavior in terms of reward into our schools? Because they're not exactly paying the bill themselves. So I'm thinking we need to have some kind of acknowledgement program where we recognize schools maybe every month for their practice in good stewardship and environmental practices or something like that. I think that would motivate and inspire students. One, that they have to tell a principal or tell an adult that there's a leaky faucet. And that there's a draft coming through a window or whatever. And on top of that, they grow up with these behaviors of their own personal practices. I was just mentioning the other day about how I grew up in Santa Cruz area, the Santa Cruz community, and we were always environmentally conscious. Was drilled into us when we were kids going to school. So we need to adopt that practice here in Sacramento City Unified. Teach our students. And then acknowledge them and reward them for those types of behaviors. So I think that's a good way where we can get them to even further reduce that amount of conservative behavior. So we'll go from 30% of conservation maybe to 40%, and it would make a difference.
I think we could do something like that. I think we could do like an incentive, like a competitive, where the schools get very competitive. You save 5%, you get this, and they can do this, they can do whatever they want for the school, something nice. I think that's something that I could envision, and it's something that I think that we could do. We have the data, all the costs and how much we have it by the how much water consumption. I had to look by the consumption, not by the cost, right? Because I think we could do that. Perhaps we could do it not just on the water, but we do it for all the utilities. So it's a culture change. It is a thing, and it takes human beings were creatures of habit. It will probably take a long time to change, but I think it's possible. We could live from an example here in Serna, right? So we can go from there.
Yeah. I actually reflect back on I don't know, some report somewhere along my career, and it said something, it takes 30 days to change a habit. It takes 30 days to basically change your way. So I don't think that the culture change would take that long. I think it might be a little bit more than 30 days, but once they start seeing those instant rewards, the motivation level will go up. But yeah, I like your ideas on that too. So I'd like to see that implemented. Superintendent Mana. It's a fun thing.
Those are new glasses, you have to go like this.
Because now he's so close, maybe I should have stayed in my seat. So on the next page over, I think, this is 4, on page 4, just exactly what I was talking about in my board sharing time about this is an important time to be responsible because in supporting your comment as well, it's easy to go down, it's harder to build up. And so when we're looking at the pie here, one of the things that we want to look at is how do we grow that pie of revenue? And if you look at other local support, other local funding, at 2%, it equals $6.8 million. And even if we were to grow that pie by 1%, that would equate $3.4 million. And that would add another slice into the pie of revenue. With where we could see all things being equal and the same, local control funding and federal funding, other state funding, even if those stay the same, if you add an additional source of income that wasn't expected before, that's the way you start growing your pie. So, there are some methods that we can look at right now in our district where we can add potential revenue sources into that pie. And so one of them being our facilities, the rental of our facilities, definitely. We don't want to start giving our facilities away. We want to start being entrepreneurial with that tool that we have right now to generate revenue out of it. Because the more independence we get out of, the more we get out of the dependence on state and federal and other state funding streams is when we're going to start seeing ourselves, when the decline happens, we have this revenue generation here that can kind of help us out still and equalize in our budget. And then perhaps even that 1% can start going into the fund balance where we're not taking away from other sources. So going on to the next, the next slide, which would be, it's unfortunate because they're not numbered at this point. I think it's 5.
Lower right-hand corner.
You can barely see it.
Yeah,
So it's 5 about the expenditures. Going back to Ms. Sweat, it is an $11.5 million deficit that we see on there before you get to other funding sources. That concerns me because we shouldn't be spending more money than what we generate in revenue. But I understand that there's other sources that come in after that in terms of the lines, the budget lines that we see before us, where it could reduce it down to what your what you ultimately are calling a positive budget. But even if we reduce expenditures again by 1%, that equates to like a $1.4 million difference. And so, going over to our interim budget, and you look at page 6, and I'm just going to call it out because you should be familiar already, the 4,300 line. I do see that, and I'm not sure, what is in that account anymore. So maybe I'm not going to require you to say anything about 4,300 line right now, but I would appreciate an email that tells me what the breakdown of what comprises all of that in there. We're looking at a board approved at 14 and actuals at 2 million. So I don't know why those numbers are so high when I don't even see the trend reaching to the 14.
Actually, I can tell you now. So one of the this year, you remember after Dr. budget, when we went to the 45-day revised budget, the state have passed one-time funds for Common Core, unrestricted. So those funds are in the supplies account because that's where we're keeping track by the allocation for Common Core because it is for Common Core supplies. So that's one of the that's one of the reasons the money is. And you will notice that in 1 year it's higher, and then in the next year it goes down because it's one time and we use it and it goes down. But that's why that's one of the main reasons.
Yeah. Well, you've been here 6 years with me. I've been talking about that line.
Right.
And I understand it's pretty much, and I'm just going to say it, it's a dumping ground for the funds that are kind of mixed, and they don't have a place in the budget. But that I'm always looking at that line, right?
Yeah. So we are not had a practice anymore. We look at the school size, but so that one of the reasons it's big is because of the one-time funds that we got for Common Core. Yeah.
No, I know you guys try to convince me that you don't have that practice anymore, but I still see it. So,
okay.
And then the other place where we definitely could start making some reductions, and this is going to be directed to our board president, is in line 5,100 and 5,800, where we have sub-agreements for services and professional consulting services. Still, we haven't had zero activity from our contracts committee. We don't have any sort of reorganization that's going on since we're losing the board member that was over heading that committee. Again, we need to start being in the practice of thinking, increasing revenues, decreasing expenses, and this is a surefire way that's easy, low-hanging fruit where we can start looking at decreasing. I'm sure we can get even the 1% just in those two accounts alone, 51 and 5,800. Where else? I did this quick analysis on page 8 of your slide. And I look at the trend that I see, and I look at the major declines, and I can only account for when I was here. I can't account for the period before that because I don't know what the major events that happened before that. I can make a guess that between 2003 and 4 and 5, it was the housing boom, and that's where you see a lot of our students moving out of the immediate area and going into other locations that were low cost of living, higher wages, and then they just left. We're never going to get those students back. I think that's the reality that we all have to acknowledge. No matter how great of a program that we build here, those students that we lost, that moved out of the area, the probability of them coming back is not that. It's not that unless we start doing more affordable housing with higher paying wage jobs. It's just the reality is not going to be there. So then you just take that slice and you go forward. And then I see in 2008 and 9, I look at the major decline that happened there. And then I ask myself, well, what was the major event that happened? And that's where we closed, I think it was 4 schools, was it, Gerardo? Do you remember? 5 schools?
I think that was 4 at that
4,
point.
ultimately. So we lost 2,265 students, or ADA. Sorry, I was doing the wrong thing. Well, we lost about 400 students, let's just say. ADA went down significantly from 2008 to 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Then we look at the stability. There was a couple of years where we saw a little bit more of a stable type of enrollment. So we had 4,400 in 9, and then you still have 4,400 in 10, but we still see kind of more of a leveling in that ADA period. And then again in 11, 12, you saw we started going down.
Yeah.
And then in the next year after that, 12, we were kind of still a little stable. But then you go to 13, 14, and what happened? What was the major event that happened there? Another school closure. So we did another 7 school closures, and we lost.
Yeah.
We lost some students there. We lost about 1,000 students. So, I think that we've got to be, a lot of concern has to be put into how are we treating our families? What message are we sending out to our families? Every time it shows here, when we look at the trends of what events taking place and what our enrollment looks like, it shows that when we make decisions that are really tough decisions to make, it shows that people vote with their feet and they walk away.
Yes, and another thing here is that, probably should have another chart, is that, your points are valid, and to add to one thing is that charter schools, we have 1 charter school in the ramen to 13 right now. So that's kind of like the trend. So the enrollment, you will notice here is that this is less charters. So that's a net. So, in this example, this year is a good example. Our enrollment went down. We add 1 more charter school. I mean, they still within a school, but we don't count it here because it's a different funding source. It's a charter fund. So right here is the net enrollment in the ADA. So, that's another just to add that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to challenge what you just mentioned, because we wouldn't have a need to approve that charter in this particular case had we not shut that school down. With that ADA that charter is now receiving is as a direct result of a decision that our board made and parents voting with their feet. Correct? I mean, it's in the same location, the same families, everything all being the same. So, it just goes to prove my point that when parents are affected, when families are affected, they're making choices to vote with their feet. And more than that group of parents, there's a lot of parents out there. So that's another area of looking at, protecting our revenue stream. I say those harsh realities because we have to acknowledge them. And if we can't acknowledge them, then we can't go forward and make positive change for the future. Right? I mean, you have to acknowledge what you've done and then move forward from that point and say, how do we prevent these kinds of things? One thing is you increase the pie of revenue. Second thing is you decrease your expenditures and the low-hanging fruit, and then you be more diligent about the expenditures that you make on the go-forward basis. And the other thing has to be, how do we treat our customers? How do we give them that intrinsic feeling to stay? All things, they can be, they can say, oh, well, Rio Linda has a wonderful high school. But you know what? We have that great feeling here at Sac City Unified. We know we're protected. We know we're cared for. We know that the decisions are not going to impact my kid in the classroom. So, those are the things that as a parent, and I'm speaking as a parent, as a parent, that's what I want to know when I take my children to school. I want to know that at the end of the day, my kids are getting great service, and that if I have an issue, I'm coming into the school and I'm getting great service at the same time, right? It's a simple formula. And we talked about that other stuff about, what is that called? The fund balance and stuff like that. But speaking of the fund balance, on your slide 13, what does this cover? And you say the general fund payroll for the month of September was $30 million. But you're not giving us a breakdown of like how much of that $30 million was restricted and unrestricted. Because if we understand how teachers and other staff in this district are funded, their positions are funded, they're not solely funded off an unrestricted general fund. They're being funded from different sources. So they're being funded either from a grant, other state revenues, or LCFF, or whatever, Title I, 2, or 3. So next time around, maybe you just break that down and say this much restricted, unrestricted, and other. Sure. That'll help me at least wrap my head around. I when you talk on slide 15, like it's just slightly above the qualified, I wanted to shout out, I'll take it. I thank you for that and your hard work on and everybody at the board, the hard work and the decisions that we had to make to get to that level. So I'm done with the presentation slides. So I have my last question, which is on page 4 of the interim budget. And I'm looking at budget line 7400. Resource code, 7400. And it's Quality Education Investment Act.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think I've asked you, to be fair, I think I've asked you about the QEIA funding. Have I or not?
I don't remember. I know we have pointed out a couple of times, but I don't remember that.
Okay. So I know that especially there's a few of them in Area 5 schools that I have that are receiving QEIA money. Mm-hmm. And that, according to the Department of Education, that money is scheduled to not be in existence this next year coming around. Is that an accurate kernel of knowledge that I have, or is there something that's just recently came up that's...
No, that is accurate. We right now we only have 2 schools who with QIA. We used to have a lot more, but it's only two high schools. The funding ends this year, 14-15. There is no funding for next year. What we know now is that if there is any carryover, they are allowed to keep it for next year, but there is not new funding. So that's what we know as of now. QIA is based on the last two that from CTA did that, and the state has required to pay certain amount of dollars. So if in the state, why there's still some funding, they might still do a little bit, but as of now they're telling us plan as there's no funding. So that's the one time. We had that funding for several years, like over 7 years, but it's still one time because it has an end date. So this year is the last one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's correct. That's correct what you're hearing.
That's a source of $3 million.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that severely impacts, and you say 2 high schools.
Yes.
That impacts teaching and learning at those high schools. And QEIA is not in a high school that has more of an affluent population attending. QEIA is directed or is intended for students who are of lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And so, again, we would be creating another disadvantage for those students once those funds are taken away. They have teachers attached to those funds, maybe some counselors and some other stuff that's going on in those schools.
So we started a conversation actually a month ago in the superintendent Kulada. We started a conversation in cabinet with aid assistants, superintendents, how we're going to plan for the change in funding, how we will make that transition, because we had to plan that the funding is gone. So so those are good points. We don't have an answer about what we're going to do yet, but we have been talking about it because we know that ends. So yes.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I put it on the radar as well, that we're having a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It would make me feel, it makes me feel a lot better that those discussions are taking place in the important part where it's budget planning and prep. So, I'd like that the conversation to continue for, even if it's just me, send me an email. This is where we're at. This is where we're heading. Because I do have staff that, bring it to my attention, and they're scared in the school sites. They're uncertain what's going to happen to them. They don't want to lose their jobs either. So we have to be very sensitive about that issue. I don't know how we can go about being more transparent about it, but, we should be involving them and at least providing some sense of assurances to them. They'll know in advance, or they don't have to worry until the next fiscal year after this one. I don't know what we could do. We don't have any solid information at this point. But these are just some ideas that we should be considering.
I think we probably have a communication with the principals and they can spread it, yeah.
And lastly, not even related to the topic here at hand, but closely, it's in the same arena. I want to express my appreciation of reaching out to invite me to a pre-audit, meeting for the district. I really appreciate that a lot. I'm so sorry I can't make the meeting, but
maybe next time. Yeah.
Maybe next time. I can't even join in on a call because I'm going to be somewhere exactly at that same time. But I just want to express my extreme level of gratitude for thinking of including me in that. And once I get the advance copy of the audit, I'll review it and look at it. But just to kind of give you a heads up on what some of the stuff that I'll be looking at is going to be the unfunded liability, the OPEB, the bonds, and then the net assets at the bottom. The first balance sheet that we see, because I do track that, and so year upon year I have all my audits and I go back and look at those. Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call Superintendent Bonda.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to really acknowledge the hard work that Gerardo Castillo and the silent partner over here, Michael Smith, who's really done a great job of being the interim director of fiscal services. I think while we have a lot to be thankful for, obviously, being able to present a positive budget is very, very good. However, there's always that cautionary tale, and I think you mentioned that during your report, that we're not out of the woods completely. I think this is a good trajectory we're on. We can show that we're making good progress. However, there's still a lot of things that can impact us along the way, so we just have to be very mindful and very conscientious about decisions we make going forward, but also how are we going to deal with those unfunded liabilities, rising costs associated with health benefits and with retirement. And we think that our staff deserve, great benefits. They deserve high salaries. They deserve all that, but we have to be able to sustain that. And it doesn't do us any good if we don't provide for assurances that we're able to actually provide funding for that going into the future. But I do want to thank you guys for your hard work. And the one thing that maybe folks don't know is that Gerardo has been very collaborative with the entire group here. He seeks out input, just like one of our board members mentioned. Her gratitude to being included or being reached out to, I think that you've shown that you're a very collaborative person, including groups, including input from others in the community as well. So very appreciative of that particular leadership style and your hard work.
Member Royal.
Thank you, President Wu. Quick question regarding the charter schools. So in these numbers, the dependent charters are not, even if they're dependent, they're not included in here?
Correct.
Okay,
so the dependent charters, so if we will add dependent charters, then the enrollment and the ADA will grow, correct?
Okay, so dependent, right? So these are schools that, even though they're charters, they utilize employees and services from the district, so they're not independent. And
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think it's an important distinction to make, even though they are not calculated in here for all intents and purposes. They are using teachers from the district. They're using our services. They're using. They're operating like a regular school, and so while for accounting purposes it might make sense not to have them in here, and I don't know if it's a choice by the district, or is that a requirement?
No, it's a requirement because those numbers is a calculation. It's part of the calculation of the LCFF numbers. So the charters, each of them have their own calculation. So it's kind of like each then is like almost their own semi-district. They have their funding source. When we receive their funding from us, then they says Bowling Green charter schools. They say the Med charter schools. So it's a. And we could include you. I think what you will notice that in the enrollment report, it's actually in this page right here. You will notice that when you add all the enrollment, it could be includes. There's a breakdown between the charter schools, so you can add a number. So for the dependent, you can add 899 to the enrollment. So that will be the total district plus 899 that we have for September.
Okay, and that is important. Just for me, I think to highlight, for example, Joseph Bonheim, that it's a dependent charter that uses. They brought 50 students that were outside of the district entirely to the district. So even though they are tabulated in a different ledger, I guess you could say, for enrollment purposes, they do bring services and funding to the district because that money circles back to the district. So just an important comment that I want to make on that. Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Arroyo. I'd like to echo the superintendent's comments and the comments of my colleagues up here. I want to congratulate you. I've never seen this green. In fact, I think it was either last year or the year before, it was barely in the qualified, hovering above the negative. And so where the arrow is today is a full step above where it had been previously. So if there are no further comments or discussion, I'm going to close the conference and I'm going to move us to action, and I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion and I have a second. Get him back. No. I want. Did he step into the back room? I'm going to kill him. Let's just keep moving. You sing. Tell us about your new glasses. They're really pretty. No, okay, I'll continue on this.
Can you want to elaborate on more?
Sure.
Yeah.
Green, what does that mean? Positive. I've never seen that before. It's, yeah, and typically if you look at signal lights, I remember because I missed this on my first driver test, it's the red light on top. It's green light's on the bottom. All I knew is that the yellow light was in the middle. I got that part right, but I missed that the green light was on the bottom because turns out that the red light's on top. But this is absolutely fantastic news. I too want to echo the comment that we have 6 more months before we adopt a budget. And so a lot can happen there. The governor can throw surprises at us like he threw us that big surprise last year when he announced in January LCFF, but didn't announce until the May revise that we were going to be asked to pay greater amounts into the teachers' retirement and didn't fund us for it. So I'm hoping that this year they'll take both into consideration and give us additional funds, but who knows? So.
This is what we know as of now, So I think it's to add what you're saying. I was thinking, when the financial side of the house, where we're getting there, we're going to posit it is in order. The educational side of the house, we can focus on that. We have spent so much time in the budget and that, and so that's another. I mean, we are there and we keep it there. It has consequences on the educational side. We can focus on student achievement and things that we should be focused. So I'd say it's not that we don't need to focus on the budget, but the less that we talk about it, the more we're doing good about it. That's how I see that part. So hopefully the arrow can stop a little bit more.
I appreciate that. So moving on then, I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor adopting the first interim financial report signify by saying aye.
You're going from conference to action.
I already did that.
But we couldn't vote to go from conference to action.
I just moved us from conference to action. All right. All those in favor moving from conference to action signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're in action.
There you go.
Do I have a motion to adopt I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Member Arroyo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10.3, first reading of the revised board bylaw 9270, conflict of interest. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Oh, no problem. Good evening, Board, President Wu, Superintendent Banda. My name is Raul Bocio. I'm Legal Services Manager, and I'm here to discuss with you the revision to Board Bylaw 9270, the Conflict of Interest Code. The Government Code, Political Reform Act, requires that the district review and revise, if required, every 2 years, its Conflict of Interest Code. After internal review, it's been clearly determined that the Bylaw 9270 requires update and revision primarily to its appendix section. The substance of the bylaw itself does not really require any revision, merely the appendix that lists the employees that have to fill out the forms, Form 700. And our amended bylaw is due to the County Board of Supervisors no later than December 30th. So we get a short window from when we inform the county in October to when we have to submit the revised bylaw. Of course, the goal of this action is to ensure compliance by the district with the Political Reform Act's requirements that the public agency decision makers disclose any potential conflicts of interest. And again, in light of the new positions that have been created and the changes to the organizational structure in the district that have taken place over the last 2 years, revision is required to ensure that the employees can comply with annual as well as taking and leaving office disclosure requirements of any potential conflicts of interest. And the completion of this revision will maintain the district as a transparent entity that is compliant with California Public Entity Conflict of Interest laws. It's a very short presentation. That's all I have for you. You're all familiar with the Conflict of Interest Code and its requirements. So I'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
Are there no questions from members of the public? I don't see any lights on here from any of my colleagues. I have one question. In looking at this designation, positions, disclosure categories, Category 1, I noticed that we're still on there.
Yeah, you can't get off Category 1, sorry.
All right.
Board members and chiefs and
What are the next steps?
The next steps now would just be to move this to the consent calendar and have it approved by the board, and then we would send it off to the County Board of Supervisors immediately thereafter in late December, and have it finalized. So, absolutely. I would just say that our code is very transparent, is very maybe overly inclusive, just to err on the side of caution and make sure that anybody who possibly would have some influence in making a district or influencing a district decision is required to go ahead and fill out the form and file the form.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you on the, we'll see. You have a count? Oh, sorry. Didn't see your light. Member Arroyo. And I'm looking at Member Rodriguez. Sorry. Member Rodriguez.
Okay. Okay. I went from the back of the alphabet to the beginning of the alphabet. Not going to be so bad. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to those of us who have to abide by the conflict of interest that Form 700s are coming up, and just to get that onto your calendar. When exactly do we need to start worrying about Form 700?
For the existing board members, your annual form, I will be sending that out to you in the early spring, in early March, and then you return that to me. So it's early spring. Of course, for new board members, they'll be filing a form within 30 days of taking office, as well as those who are leaving office as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just an admonition, I want to remind my colleagues that if you file them late, it's $10 a day fine, up to $100, because I was there once. Moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to item 11.1, business and financial information reports. You too? 11.1, business and financial information. We have received it, enrollment and attendance report for month 1 ending September 29, 2014. Item 12.0, future board meeting dates and locations. December 18, 2014, 4:30, closed session, 6:30, open session. And we will be having swearing in ceremonies on that date. And then January 8th, 2015, 4:30 p.m., closed session, 6:30 p.m., open session. Item 13, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Student Member Saito moved to adjourn, and Member Hansen second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, go home, everybody. Thank you.